Okay, so it's been a while since I've really recorded one of these videos, mostly just because I've been putting it off because I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, and if I'm not able to like get it exactly how I want, I'd rather not do it at all. You know what I mean? I don't know, I'm feeling in a relatively good mood. Oh my god, that dog is not in a good mood though. That dog is obviously very upset. So I don't really spend too much time thinking about like how other people perceive me or how other people like think of me. I don't spend too much time thinking about that. But I am very aware that a lot of people make interesting assumptions about me. And I feel like one of the things that people make an assumption about me about is my confidence. If you make that assumption about me, I don't want to necessarily break that illusion for you, but I will be transparent and say that sometimes I'm not the most confident. And I just had a moment, like subconsciously what like inspired me to make this video was that I saw this dude in this really janky car, right? And I'm not like making fun, I'm not judging, but that's objectively, like the car was very janky. It had a nice colors to it, but it was very janky. And the dude inside, I was like eyeing him, I was like looking at him, and I know it was just a moment where I was just like, that was a person of interest right there. And I wasn't gonna necessarily say anything to him. Like I thought about it. I thought about like, you know, walking up to him and being like, hey yo, you wanna be friends? But I was just like, in my head, I was like, that looks like a cool dude. And then so a little bit of time goes by and then we like cross paths, and I force myself in that little voice that I do when I like try to be louder. I'm like, I love your style. Have a nice day. And he was like, thanks. And I don't know what that did for him. I don't know how he received that, but I felt good about myself because I was like, comfort zone, we're gonna beat your ass. That was a moment. And so here I am making a video, because also it's Wednesday and officially my schedule was supposed to be Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. And I made a post. I didn't make a video, but I made a post on Monday. So I guess we could consider that a thing. I don't know. I'm not super consistent with my intros. I was supposed to say it when I started the video. I did not say it, so I'm gonna say it now. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, I appreciate you. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back. You're awesome. You know what I mean? So one thing that I want to talk about, at least briefly, at least for a second and a half, is the very real danger of like, how do I say this? Of like taking your life off course for the wrong people, you know? Like specifically like romantic relationships, because I'm a lover boy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a lover boy. I fall hard and fast. And I found myself a connection with some not so great people in the last year, and I feel like one of them I'm still kind of getting over. And like somebody eloquently put it so beautifully, that was a redundant sentence, but somebody put it so beautifully that like sometimes you're not necessarily mourning the person, you're mourning the routine that you had with the person. And when I thought about that, I was like, oh, that makes sense, because I put a lot into relationships. I be doing the good morning text, I be doing the good night, you know, like everything, like, because I'm invested. I love you. I care about you. I want you to have a nice day. You know what I mean? So then when that eventually goes away, it's like, okay, now what do we do with this time that we spent doing X, Y, and Z? You know what I mean? And so I don't mean to like be paranoia or whatever, but you really got to be careful about who you allow into your life, into who you allow into your routine. Because some people literally once they go, once you leave, it's gonna fuck you up. I promise you. I could not have predicted that my departure from his life would have affected me the way that it did. But you know, once again, that's how it goes. Like, you're mourning the routine, you're mourning the time that you spent with this person, you know? Generally, I'm a very productive person. And at this point, it's probably not even an assumption because I've said it so many times publicly. But I do feel like people probably make the assumption that I'm a very productive person. And most of the time I am. I try to get shit done. I like to do things. You know, I like to have a task, etc., etc. And so even with relationships, it also goes for that. It's like, if I am choosing to be in a relationship with you, that is something that I'm putting my energy into. I'm spending my time. I'm like planning things out, and in all honesty, I do kind of feel like the person that I was talking about, the person that I'm like no longer talking to, was kind of taking me for granted. Like, they just kind of got used to the good energy, and they were just like, oh, whatever, it is what it is, like, he's always gonna be around, right? And I'm like, bitch, you thought it was, because I'm telling you that this isn't working, that this needs to change, and you just looking at me like I'm crazy. So don't be surprised when I fucking disappear. And what did I do? I became Houdini. Because it was just too much, because I genuinely did care for this bitch. I genuinely, like, wanted the best for them. But it did not seem like they wanted the same thing for me. It did not seem like they had the capacity to want the same thing for me. Like, they might want it for me. They might think that they want it for me. But they were not taking actions to do that, And also another thing that I recently kind of figured out, I guess, is that when you get into a relationship, when you have a child, when you pass a big life milestone, it brings up a lot of triggers. It brings up a lot of trauma, And being aware of that, like, I feel like it really did something for my brain. It really gave me a little bit of progress, because, I'm a very self-aware person. I try to, like, dive into myself on a daily basis. I try to ask myself questions, blah, blah, blah. And so, once again, in these relationships, I got really triggered for different reasons. And when I examined that shit, I was like, oh yeah, because this is not a healthy pattern. This is not something good that I do, so, because I was reading a story on Reddit, and they were talking, it was this wife, this woman, and she was talking about her husband and how he was perfectly fine up until her water broke. But then he started acting really weird, aka triggered. And in the comments, people were being like, yeah, no, when you have a child, it brings up a lot of unresolved trauma. It makes you relive a lot of your past trauma, because it's like, I was in this position and somebody did X, Y, and Z to me. I don't understand how somebody could do this, because I'm looking at me. I'm looking at the baby version of me. And I'm like, I could never do that. It's like, and it really goes down, and people are crazy. I don't know. When you really zoom out, you really just have to blame the system at large. The system encourages people to, like, lose their fucking minds. Not be themselves, not be true to themselves, be true to their divinity, And so, once again, I feel like recognizing this consciously has definitely been a game changer a little bit, because now I'm like, oh yeah, duh, like, because I already knew self-compassion, I already knew, be patient with yourself, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm like, oh, now this makes sense. Okay, now this is happening specifically because I am trying to be in a relationship with somebody. This is specifically happening because I just had a baby. This is specifically happening because I just made a lot of money. It's like, and this is why a lot of people do not get the success that they want. Why a lot of people don't get the relationships that they want, because with those beautiful things, with those beautiful achievements, also come a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And the longer, and also, I'm going to say this, the longer that you have, the longer that you have taken to get to that, like, consciousness, to that awareness, of the suffering, of the pain, the more it's probably going to hurt, my friend. Like, in all honesty, that's just how it works. Like, because that's so much energy, that's so much pressure, that's so much, like, stimuli, and it's just coming to the surface, because it doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just go somewhere else. Like, I feel like that's what a lot of people think. It's like, oh, I'm going to push this down, and I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it, and it's just going to go away. But that's not how it fucking works. Our stupid human bodies hold shit in. I feel like it's a really hard concept for people who don't see, who don't, pick up on energy. It's a really hard concept, because it's like, what do you mean? That sounds magical. That sounds like we're in a Disney movie. Like, what are you talking about? But literally, that's how it works. Like, if you hold in all of your negative emotions, that shit is not going to go somewhere. Unless you're like an artist, unless you're like a writer, unless you're somebody that genuinely, like, creates, it's not going anywhere, And then also, I have to thank writing. I have to thank, creativity for part of the reason why I am the person I am, because that is a way for me to get out the negative feelings that I'm feeling, Like, the other day, I don't know where I was. I don't remember. I think I was just taking a walk or a bike ride or something. And I had the paranoia drop into my head. And I've had these sets of thoughts before in a more serious context. But I think I really changed the game with this one. And once again, I will always preach this. I've been preaching this for a while. Like, if you start feeling negative emotions, if you start feeling bad, write about it. Write it down. Even if you never do anything with that, write it down. Do something with that. Sing about it, you know? Do something with that energy. But anyway, the paranoia was that, like, it was basically the idea that, like, God, our creator, you know, is somewhat of an asshole, somewhat of a controlling asshole, you know? And I had that thought, and it was kind of making me anxious. And then I wrote it down in my notes app. I was like, story idea. What if God was a controlling asshole? And I don't want to say immediately, because then it sounds like, oh, you're just making this up. But I kid you not, immediately, like, that feeling of paranoia went away. That feeling of anxiety went away. Because I was doing something with that energy. I put it out into the physical in some way. You know what I mean? I feel like every time I am in the cemetery, I do make it known. And I wasn't going to make it known. But I'm passing this random, like, thing of dirt. And I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was so weird. I don't know. But also, I'm in a cemetery. I feel like that was kind of obvious. I feel like you could probably see it in the background. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, life is crazy, for real. And, like, in case the person that I mentioned is watching this video right now, I hope you know that I genuinely, oh my God, I don't know. There's so many things I wish I could say. I don't know. I get it. Once again, when you recognize the trigger thing, like, when you get into a relationship, you're going to be triggered. You're going to be, like, stimulated to stress because you're being called to, like, address certain things. Like, I don't know. Once again, it's a painful thing for a lot of people. It's why most people do not reach success, or at least their version of success, because I do believe that success is subjective. But that's why most people don't reach that, because it hurts a lot. It's a lot of pain, and you don't have to go through it. You can choose to opt out of it, but it is a lot of pain. It's a lot, you know? And I don't know. I definitely recognize that I'm a strong person because of all that I've been through. And I try not to judge other people for how they live their lives. Like, I've tried to come to a place where I'm very non-judgmental. Like, even when I genuinely think that somebody's being stupid, like, I still try to have the view of, like, they're learning. This is part of the journey. That this doesn't make them any less of a human. This doesn't make them any less of a person with experiences. Like, they're learning, you know? And, you know, sometimes you just gotta flow with it. You just gotta, you know? Because also, another thing that I don't really love talking about publicly is my relationship with substances. I've talked about it in my book, which you can find out in the link tree down below. I wrote a book. It took me like a year and some change to write it. I was homeless through it all and blah, blah, blah. But I wrote that book. And within it, I do talk about, you know, I can't even lie. I can't even pretend like I knew what I was saying. I literally forgot what I was saying. But if you want to check out the book, it is down there. I don't remember what the price is. I think I raised the price recently because I realized, like, how much I put into it. And I was like, I'm selling myself short. What the fuck? So I did raise the price a tiny bit. But if you want to go check that out, you can check that out. It's an ebook. I really don't remember what I was saying, and I do not have the means to, like, watch this back until I'm done. So, oops. I remember what I was saying. My substance use. Once again, throughout the creation of this book, I was heavy on meth. Like, I write about it in the book, like, my experiences and how I feel like I overcame, blah, blah, blah. But I've always had, like, a sort of addictive personality, you know? Like, everything that I do that I find enjoyment in, there's a possibility for me to, like, go overboard. You know, like, with live streaming, I love live streaming. I love interacting with people and, like, you know, connecting with people in that way. And so sometimes I get carried away. Sometimes I be doing it a little bit too much, and I just be getting a little bit too comfortable, you know? And same with meth. I got really comfortable with just being in that energy, you know? And once again, I'm a creative person, and I made the effort to balance it out and like also create and like be productive. But I don't know why I said but. Where's the but? I don't know. Also, within the book, I do talk about emotions and the importance of honoring your emotions. Because I do feel like that's a big reason why a lot of people go cuckoo, why a lot of people go crazy, and like, you know, because they don't take the time to honor their own emotions. And they also didn't have the space to have their emotions honored as children. Like, it really does pains my chest, pains my heart to know that we live in a society where children are not really respected. You know, we pretend like we respect the elders. That's like a whole thing. Like, respect your elders, which we don't across the board. But I feel like that should also apply to children. Like, the most vulnerable in our society. Like, literally, they don't know how to do anything. Like, they're still learning everything. Like, but yet we like try to like silence them and like make them, you know, just do whatever we want. And it's like, you know, you're supposed to be there for them, right? Like, you're the one who's supposed to be taking care of them, you know. But a lot of people, once again, and it goes back to trauma, it goes back to being hurt, but a lot of people are deeply selfish, you know, like, and that's what happens when you're in survival mode. You're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about protecting self, which is understandable, it makes sense, it's valid. But me personally, once again, coming from a non-judgmental space, I have stepped outside of like the idea of like only thinking about myself and only thinking about how, you know, how I'm affected. It's like, no, if I'm making a decision, if I'm making a move, there are other people impacted. You know, even if it has nothing to do with them, there are other people who are being impacted. And I think about that, you know, like recently I found myself in a situation where I had to leave a housing thing. And I've talked about it publicly in bits and pieces. Like, it was a really sweet setup. I was getting to stay there rent-free, you know, kind of indefinitely. Like, the person I was staying with was kind of really bad at communicating. So we didn't really set up a specific, like, situation. It was just kind of like, you get to stay here, and, you know, occasionally we hang out and, like, do stuff. I'm not gonna talk about that. But, yeah, eventually I had to leave. I felt called to leave. I kept getting that message, that divine message of like, you need to fucking leave, bro. Because like, there's a lot of history with this situation. Like, I could talk about like how I got kicked out several times and it was like a whole mess. But then this time I feel like I had control, you know, because I was like, okay, I'm leaving on my own accord. And so I left. And it was a decision that I feel like I kind of took a little bit too long to make the choice, because I was so like concerned with how other people would like be impacted, you know, even though I was making the choice obviously for my own sanity. Like, I thought about like how they would feel, you know. And so when I finally did it, thankfully they clarified in my head why I was leaving, because like they were not receptive to me leaving. And like, sure, you could blame it on me and like my word choice, because I was very blunt, I was very transparent with why I was leaving. I said exactly why I was leaving, which was because I felt disrespected, I felt unloved, I did not feel cared for. That was my reason for leaving, and I told them. And he did not like that. But it was like, it was crazy, because it was like, you would think somebody's telling you they feel disrespected. If you actually respect them, you know what you should do? You should make them feel respected in that moment. Ask them why do you feel that way? You know, but he didn't necessarily do that. He instead doubled down and like went out of his way to disrespect me. And then the other person that I just mentioned, the person that I was like, the other person that I was talking to, he was also involved in the situation. And he did not show up for me at all in this situation. Like, he was just kind of there. He was just there, you know, just being on the sidelines. I don't know why people think that being neutral is actually being neutral. Like, no, being neutral is a point for the enemy. Like, when you decide to be silent, when you decide to shut your mouth, because you don't want to get involved, you don't want to know drama, that is a point, that is a win for the aggressor. You know, when you choose to stay silent about issues like homelessness and like women abuse, like, once again, that is a point for the abuser. Like, however you want to slice it, you could try to absolve yourself, but like, that is literally how that works. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you need to go out and rally in the streets. I'm not saying you need to like organize protests. But at the least, if you're aware that there's injustice, if you genuinely give a fuck, it is your responsibility to say something about it or do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, not to toot my own horn, not to put myself on a pedestal, whatever. But one thing that I enjoy doing that I haven't been able to do in a while because of the person that I mentioned, because I was doing it with them, is giving out to the homeless. Like, that was one of my ways of, like, giving back, you know? And I once again, I enjoyed it so much. I love it. Like, and once again, not to put myself on a pedestal, not to boast my ego, because, like, I will also say, and he will probably vouch for that too, like, I was very scared to do it. Like, when I first told him about the idea, I was terrified that he would even be up for it, right? I was like, what if he shoots the idea down and I don't get to do this, you know? But he was on board, I guess. He was hesitant. I had to convince him, but he, you know, and so we were doing that, like, every week or so, every other week, whatever, and I was enjoying that. But, like, I just feel like a lot of people get into relationships for the wrong reasons. You know, a lot of people want things for the wrong reasons. And I'm not here to be, like, judgmental or, like, tell you how you should live your life or whatever. Unless you're seeking it, unless you're asking for it, don't listen to me. You know, because, like, I'm about free will. I'm about encouraging people to find themselves. Like, find your own divinity, to find your own higher power. You know what I mean? But, yeah, I was doing this. And I feel like he was just so in his ego. I remember at some point we were on the phone, and I think I was limited on money, and he said he was limited on money, which I think he was kind of lying, but whatever. And so he basically made the comparison. He was like, so you want me to starve? You want me to not eat so we can feed the homeless? And he said that shit, and I feel like I should have hung up on his face right then and never talked to that bitch ass again. I feel like that's what I should have did, but I gave him patience. I was so furious in that moment. I'm kidding you not. Like, when I get angry, I get heated. I don't know if, like, this is a normal thing. I don't know if everybody is like this, but for me, when I get angry, my body temperature rises. And so I was fuming. Like, I think it just got done snowing, so it was relatively cold over there. It was relatively cold at the time. So I went outside to, like, cool down. I was probably dressed the way that I am now. And I was so mad. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, because, like, we're also talking about somebody who, I don't know, like, I'm not trying to talk shit. Like, once again, if he happens to watch this, please don't think I'm fucking talking shit or whatever. I'm just expressing, like, how I felt about the situation. You know what I mean? He said that. And it really threw me for a loop, because I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're acting as if we do this, you're not going to be able to eat for a week. You're acting like you're not going to be able to, like, what are you talking about? You have a job, sir. Like, what do you have consistent income. What are you talking about? Like, and honestly, I have it under relatively clear authority that this person is probably in regret about the way that they behaved. But I don't believe that they're in regret because things went down the way they went down. I think they're in regret because they didn't get what they wanted out of the situation. You know? Because I don't know what it is about me, but I feel like I'm always attracting people who do not know how to healthily communicate and don't want to healthily communicate. Because I would time and time again be like, okay, what is it that you want out of this connection? You know? Because it seems like you just really want sex. Because that was the thing that excited him the most. And I'm like, I don't care about sex. I do not want sex. I'm a very flirtatious person. I flirt a lot. But when it comes down to it, I don't care about sex. Like, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. I enjoy it when it happens. But it's like, I could really go without that energy, you know? But, like, you know, it was like one of the only things that excited him. Like, I would try to have a conversation with him, and he was, like, boring as fuck. And I'm like... And I would tell him, I would be like, you know, this is what I want out of a partner. Like, I want somebody I can have conversation with, somebody that I can talk to and share ideas with, you know? And, like, I don't know if he was purposely withholding that or if he just didn't know how, if he just didn't have the capacity to have intellectual conversations, you know? Because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people want to believe that they're smarter than they are. Once again, I'm not talking shit. It just is what it is. Like, a lot of people want to believe that they're smart. And instead of doing the work to actually be smart, they'd rather just compete with other people who are actually smart. And it's like, what is wrong with you? You could take notes. You could learn from me, bitch. What are you doing? Honestly, for him, I feel like he did have a little bit of an arrogance. He definitely was a little bit full of himself, you know? And because he would always try to impart wisdom upon me. He would always try to teach me shit. And it would be the most stupid things that I already knew about, you know, that I could also just Google myself, you know, if I really wanted to learn about it. But then when I would tell him something, it would just kind of go in one ear and out the other, and he would just scoff at me and be like, whatever, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. Even if he didn't directly say that, that's how his actions portrayed. You know, he's very dismissive. And once again, I don't know for sure if he was doing it on purpose or if it was just in his nature to be dismissive and avoidant, you know, because both are valid, you know, because there are people in the world who are actively malicious, who go out of their way to hurt others. And like, I don't know, because of the people that I've had in my past, because I've interacted with so many energy leeches, because I've interacted with so many like nasty energies, I have a hard time trusting people in general, and I have a hard time believing that anybody genuinely has pure intentions or good intentions. I mean, I know myself, I know what my intentions are, and I can speak for myself at this point, but I've been hurt so many times where I'm just like, I don't know what's real, you know? Like, I just kind of look at everybody with a grain of salt and everything with a grain of salt. I'm like, I don't know, man. Because when I met this person, I would have believed that he was a very selfless person. He very much so cared about other people. He wanted to be of service to people. And maybe on some level he did, but I don't think it was like genuinely because he wanted to do it. I think it was because he knew that it looked good. You know what I mean? Because I remember one time we had a conversation about narcissists, like narcissism. And I say conversation, but really I was having the conversation. He was just kind of piggybacking off of what I was saying, I guess. But I remember I said at some point, I was like, you know, narcissism isn't inherently bad. Like, just because somebody has narcissistic traits doesn't mean they're like evil. It just means that they're self-absorbed. And, you know, I was also talking about like how the Kardashians are probably very narcissistic in the sense that like they do charity and shit. They help the world, but they're probably only doing it because they know that it looks good. I mean, I don't know these people personally. Maybe they do have big hearts. I don't know. But a lot of people in the world do good things because it looks good, not because they genuinely give a fuck. And I can tell you in this moment, the reason why I was giving out the homeless is because I genuinely wanted to do it. Like, I genuinely felt called to do it, and I genuinely enjoyed doing it. You know, even though it was something that I was scared of, I was scared to do it. Like, I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed, you know, providing that service. And when I tell you, once again, this dude would get so irritated. This dude would get so like, you know, he was such a like resistance against what I was trying to do. And once again, I don't know if it was like consciously or not, or if it was like, you know, but like he would be such a bummer to be around when we were doing it. Like, he would be so pessimistic. He would be like I don't even want to like quote him, but it was just so draining, you know. And it's like, I'm trying to do something good for people, and you out here complaining and like, I don't know, like. And honestly, once again, I don't like believing that people have these sorts of intentions, but I know that there are people like this in the world who exist. And there's a part of me that was definitely being like, this person is trying to steal your life. Like, I'm not saying that definitively. Once again, if you happen to be watching this, if that is your intention, I see you very clearly. But, you know, the optimist in me doesn't want to believe that people are evil, right? But I genuinely do believe that he was trying to, like, either subconsciously or consciously trying to take over my life, you know? Because, like, I don't know, like, I'm a very observant person. And especially if I care about you, if I love you, I'm going to observe you and I'm going to pay attention to your habits, you know? And so sometimes he would do things and I'd be like, why did you do that? Or I would bring it to his attention. I'd be like, did you know you just did that? And, like, he just did not like that. He did not like focusing on those negative traits. Like, he was always like, I'm a good person. It's like, okay, you can be a good person, but you know there's negative traits to all of us, right? We all have shadow work that we need to do to be whole, integrated people. Like, you know? And really, at the end of the day, it's the people who avoid doing that inner work that do the most harm unto others. You know, the people who avoid looking at themselves in the mirror, those are the people who do the most harm. And it's not always that they're doing it consciously. Usually they're not doing it consciously. Usually they want to be better, but they're not willing to sit with themselves long enough. You know what I mean? Because it's painful. I'm telling you, it's painful to sit with yourself. Like, I have been smoking marijuana. specifically, let me clarify. Marijuana, not anything else, because I did talk about some other stuff earlier. I've been smoking, and I feel like I've been making progress because I want to stop smoking. I want to not depend on marijuana because I realize to some degree I do depend on it, like to function and to like feel good and to feel sane, to feel balanced. I do depend on it. I'm aware of that. I'm not ashamed to say that, but I don't want to be in that energy. I don't want to depend on it. And so I have slowly been like, working on that. I've been journaling a lot. I've been reflecting a lot. When I get into that energy, of I need to smoke, I need to do this, I need to, because it's an energy, it's a trigger, And when you become aware of those, then you can flow with it and you can work with it and you can understand why it even happens in the first place. And honestly, I don't believe that there's hope in the present day. Like, far off into the future, sure, whatever. Circumstances happen, energies change, energies shift. But right now, I've realized that the reason why I smoke so much is because of the stimulus that I'm living around. Like, even when I was living in that house rent-free, that was a big stressor. Like, sure, I was living rent-free, sure, it's a blessing, it's awesome. But those people in that house were all very unhealed individuals. We're all people who allowed their triggers to get the best of them. And I'm not saying this judgmentally, it just is what it fucking is. Like, these people had never really taken the time to consider, like, who they were or, like, how they impacted others. They were just kind of existing, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but a lot of people, come across me and feel a lot of feelings. Like, it's either super positive feelings or it's super negative. But either way, once again, like I said before, when we hit big life milestones, it often creates negative triggers for us, like when we're feeling super good, usually there's also a negative, and so a lot of people come across me and they're like, this is such a strong feeling, what the fuck? And instead of going within and like reconciling what they need to do, they point the finger at me and they blame me for how they feel. And it's like, I get it, but that you missed the whole assignment. You missed the point. You know what I mean? There's a difference, like, between somebody like purposely triggering you and purposely upsetting you, and then somebody just existing and you having a trigger and being triggered. There's a difference. And I'm not going out of my way to piss people off. I'm not going out of my way to like anger people. So when you take that into consideration, it's like, this is a you problem. And nobody likes to hear that. Nobody likes to like be told, like, this is a you problem. This is something you need to figure out, But it is what it is, you know what I mean? I'm getting in a mode of like just wanting to hash out all of the stuff. Like, I feel like I can make another 30 minutes of just talking about the trauma that I experienced from this relationship, but I won't, because no. But if nothing else from this video, be mindful when good things happen to you, that there are going to be negative feelings that come up, and it's up to you to really like work with that, Like, sure, there are circumstances where other people are objectively the problem, but when you recognize all you can really do is change yourself, you start going within a lot more. You start reflecting a lot more and thinking about your own actions a lot more. Like, sure, this other person is actively being evil, but how can I protect myself? How can I navigate in a way where I'm not affected by that? You know what I mean? Like, you have to start asking yourself questions like that. Like, how can I do better? How can I be better? Not let me wait for them to be a better person. Like, no, what do I need to do so that I can be more happy in this situation? So ultimately, I hope this video was helpful. I hope this did something for you. If not, I don't know what to tell you. If you did enjoy this, you should definitely check out the link tree down below. I make music. Also, I'm going to start saying this from now on. I started saying this on live stream. I make music for me and my inner child. And obviously, if I do resonate with people, if I do connect with people through my music, that's awesome. But I make music because I enjoy making music and I enjoy listening back to my music. So I'm just going to say that before any of you go and listen to my music and like decide to tell me, oh, this is really good potential, but you should do this and that. I love you so much, but shut the fuck up. Like, I don't want that. Like, I appreciate my music as it is, and I'm very critical of myself as it is. So I already know everything that you're going to tell me. Just enjoy the fucking music, or don't. and have a nice rest of your day. Bye, deuces.